GM barely hanging in there. Stock closed today at $1.61. That's a cup of coffee that ain't from Starbucks. And now we find out that General Motors will be manufacturing more cars overseas, with new jobs to be added in cheaper markets like Mexico, China, South Korea. Hold on, partner. I thought we loaned $15.4 billion in tax dollars to GM to keep more jobs here in the U.S. We got a problem here? Peter Flaherty is president of the National Legal and Policy Center. He's a free markets kind of guy. Nancy Skinner is our lefty, and she's based in Detroit. So how's this debate going to go? Peter, let's start with you. Obviously, GM should be able to make cars wherever it's cheapest and most efficient, right? And to heck with the idea of trying to keep jobs in the U.S.
Well, in theory, but we're not in the world of theory now. We're in the world of reality. And the reality is that Barack Obama campaigned on saving American jobs, yet now GM has this plan to ship American jobs to China, where they make $3 an hour, and Mexico, where they make $10 an hour. He also talked about how important it was to have a domestic car industry. Yet we have this forced shotgun merger with Fiat.
Of Italy.
So that Chrysler's boss is now Fiat, and they put in no money. And what do we get in return? We get low-quality, small Fiats that are supposed to come here and compete with very high-quality Toyotas and Hondas.
But, Peter, aren't you usually in favor of letting U.S. manufacturers build wherever they have to?
Well, sure.
But not this time.
We could do that if we pretended that this was a real company. But real companies don't steal the equity of their secured bondholders.
Right.
What we have now is a political operation. It's the UAW and Obama, and I think they should be held to their own statements. And they claimed they were going to save American jobs, and they said we were going to have a healthy American car industry, and it was very important.
Well, thanks for that surprise. Nancy, certainly you must be outraged. Detroit, moving jobs offshore. It's wrong.
In theory, you would be right. We are so on the backwards with this. Yes, I ran for Congress in Detroit in 2006 on the platform of retooling the industry to be more fuel efficient, and the UAW was my largest promoter. So
well, how'd
absolutely,
that go? How'd that go, Nancy?
I lost by 3 points, and it had been 20-point
margin. How did the car industry make out?
You're diverting.
They didn't. The point was that when I say, so I have some creds here, Dennis. When I say that this part of this plan, that to keep GM intact, it has to be part of it, because the alternative of letting Chrysler or GM go down, because they all go down, is far worse to the national economy. The ripple effect throughout the national economy. 1 in 10 jobs are tied to this, including television, radio, everything.
So Nancy, wait, Nancy, you're not being clear. Nancy, you are saying then that if what GM needs to do to survive is make some cars in cheaper markets and bring them back over to the U.S., you're fine with it?
Because it's not all they're going to do. They have the Chevy Volt, the Chevy Volt technology.
Right.
It'll be out next Thanksgiving, 100 mile per gallon. It's the first fully electric vehicle.
Oh,
that technology is right there.
Yeah,
and
nobody's going to buy it.
Here.
Nobody's going to buy it.
making it here.
Not with $2 gas.
Why not?
Look, the president does have options. He could do things that really would keep American jobs here. He could suspend the fuel economy standards. He could renegotiate contracts at the UAW instead of giving the money that belongs to the bondholders and giving it to the union.
That's not
true. And he could end
true.
this boondoggle called the electric car. No one's going to buy it. Even the hybrid now, you have to add $6,000 to $10,000 to a vehicle. If you have an all-electric car, it's going to be much more expensive. That's not what Detroit needs. Detroit needs to sell cars now that people will buy, that they can make a profit on, not to reward another special interest group, the environmentalists, after you get done rewarding the United Auto Workers.
Can I breathe here and say
one
thing?
Go ahead,
the UAW.
Nancy.
This idea that somehow the UAW came out on this with the Chrysler thing is ridiculous. The bondholders, they bought junk bonds, 30 to 60 cents on the dollar. They got offered 33 cents on the dollar. The UAW went from $50 billion that they were owed in contracts for health care to $10 billion. They got equity.
Oh,
they got
come on,
hope.
Nancy.
So
Look, Nancy, give me a break. The government handed
bondholders had their money stolen. No one stole UAW's money. It's a bad situation. The companies are going broke. Everybody's going to have to take a haircut for sure. But a secure bondholder has equity rights in that private property, and Obama has just stolen it.
And the UAW had way more skin in that game.
I need to make a couple points here, folks. If I can make a couple points. Yeah. First, Nancy, the union has the best health care benefits in the country. The retirees don't even have to pay a copay. Now, they've been doing that for 20 years while the car industry has been in deep trouble. Second, Chrysler, 55% stake in that company handed over not to the rank and file workers who have earned an equity stake in that company, handed over to the union that's going to turn around and sell it way too fast at too cheap a price to fund its cushy health care plan. Peter, as for you, I'm shocked, sir, shocked that you would argue against letting GM move the most efficient production to the most efficient market and do what it needs to do to survive.
Well,
even when government has a bailout, we have to give them a chance to operate the way they need to operate.
Well, let's let them do that by getting the government out and getting Obama out of the picture. He's set out these diktats. It's a very dangerous precedent what he's done here, and I predict this is just the beginning. He's going to go from industry to industry, and ultimately the entire private sector is going to be crushed.
Maybe he won't, Nancy. Maybe actually once he gets past banking and automakers, maybe actually the guy won't ever want to touch a business again. It's pretty messy, isn't it, Nancy?
He already said newspapers are gone. Manufacturing, we got to make stuff here, and that's why we have to save this auto industry, because it's going to affect 1 in 10 jobs. The stress test, I assure you of this, I don't think the stress test ever anticipated the collapse of the auto industry, because if it did, none of those banks would survive, because it will ripple everywhere.
Actually,
so we do
the nice thing about running this conversation is I get last word as I wrap here, and I'm sure the stress tests took that into account. I'll bet you anything they did. There's no way they would fail to do that. And